Something else that I did want to point out here is Jackson LaCombe drew back into the game after having 2 games out, and Greg Cronin gladly switched up the D pairs and did not have Jackson LaCombe with Cam Fowler because against Edmonton and in the game in Montreal, I don't think that pairing did him any favors. And we just have a much larger we have a large sample with Radko Gudas of that pairing being great. And prior to the bye week, Jackson LaCombe was playing, I think, the best hockey he's played all season next to Radko Gudas. Part of that is I think Radko Gudas is probably the best Ducks defenseman, and so you're just going to play better when you're next to him. But I think it just supports him in a much better way and allows him to play his game in a way that gives him a spot for success. And so we saw him draw back in. I thought he had a really good game.
Yeah, no, he played really well. He was doing all the Jackson LaCombe things. You know, he had one play, I think it was like about halfway through the second period, where he just had the puck at the blue line and just kind of walked off the blue line, goes around 2 different guys, cuts into the slot, and nothing comes of it. But like he looks so confident with the puck, and yes, I'm using that word confident, but he's trying things that I think ordinarily rookie defensemen don't try. And the Ducks have 2 of those guys in their blue line right now with Minchikov and LaCombe. And that's why at times it's going to look very squirrely. But when it works, and it was today for Jackson LaCombe, he looks like, to me, an indispensable part of this future for this Ducks blue line.
What did you make of Gus Lindstrom's game? Because he's now played, this was the 3rd straight game that he's drawn into the lineup. And he was paired with Cam Fowler in this game and took basically every shift with him up until it looks like there was 1 shift at the end of the game. That was the only 5v5 shift that he did not take with Fowler.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's, between him and Vakanainen, like, how big of a difference is there?
Yeah.
And the thing is, Lindstrom is a righty. So there's a kind of a bias. There's a kind of presumption that, hey, let's try to get these left and right pairings together because it's just such a nuisance to have lefty.
Yeah.
And, I thought Lindstrom was fine. I thought early in the game, like a lot of the team, he had some glaring mistakes where, and Leo Carlson was guilty of this too, but like a guy is kind of sneaking behind you in the neutral zone or in the offensive zone, and you just don't react in time, and then it turns into a breakaway or a 2-on-1. He was guilty of some of that, but as the game went on, like, I mean, he had the kind of the breakout pass to set up the goal we were talking about with McTavish and Terry. So I think he's just good enough. Like, he's fine.
Yeah. I think he would be a fine, like 6th, 7th defenseman on this.
I mean, ideally that's what he is.
Yeah.
But right now, like, I think he's getting by.
Yeah. Well, and one thing I'm curious if they do this moving forward, because looking at the shift charts, something they did late in the game, and it didn't really flag for me when it happened, but defending the 1-goal lead, they put Cam Fowler out there with Pavel Minchikov.
Yeah, I saw that. I don't know what that was about.
And that's the reason why that's flagging for me is I was just kind of looking at pairing numbers, what was it, a day or 2 ago, because I was curious, kind of trying to construct what I would think my ideal version of this lineup. And small sample size, 36 minutes, so it could change as they play more. Fowler and Minchikov have a 74% expected goal share together.
Yeah.
And part of me wonders if that pairing would ever get it was a power play at the end of the game. So it was
that's what it was.
That's what it was. It was a 5-on-4.
The Samuelson penalty.
Yeah. Thank
you.
Awful
holding penalty.
Elizabeth Leo pointed that out. Thank you in our YouTube chat. So thank you for that. But I'd be curious, kind of as it goes on and as Ilya Lyubushkin is eventually moved, and you can maybe do a Vakanainen and Lindstrom pairing as your 3rd pairing, and you can kind of get Fowler and Minchikov, and you're not having to really. You can play that pairing a bit more. You're not having to divvy up the minutes. You kind of have a pure 3rd pairing in Vakanainen and Lindstrom, and then you have LaCombe and Gudas there as your 2nd pair to also eat minutes. And just curious kind of how that pairing would work longer term.
Yeah. I mean, I hate the lefty with lefty. I'm just not a fan. But
with Fowler signed long term, there's going to have to be a way.
Well, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
We'll talk about that.
Long
term in quotation marks.
Okay. But the Ducks ended up pulling out the win. This was probably, I would say, their best 5-on-5 performance of the road trip. The Ottawa game was largely driven by Korpisalo playing horribly on the penalty kill, and the Ducks getting some breaks going their way in that game to win that game 5-1. I think this was probably the closest to a solid game, and they were still on the wrong side of 50%.
Well, and Ottawa was kind of, I mean, not like this game, but like some of the plays is just high skill from the Ducks' best players, like the Terry feed to McTavish against Ottawa. Like,
yeah,
it's the star players getting it done.
Salem has jumped on my lap.
Yes.
If you're hearing meows.
Yes.
Yeah, as her tail comes into screen. But yeah, I mean, this was a good way to end the road trip. This felt like such a weird road trip because
it's the way they had to end it.
Yeah, because
they had to end it this way.
I mean, this pulled them back to 500 on the road trip, which kind of is weird when you think about it in totality with how the Toronto game went, how the Montreal game went. Like, it felt like such a drag, but at the end of it all, you don't lose more. You don't get less points or get negative points by losing 9-2. So it counts as a loss, and that's it. And you don't get extra points for winning a game like that. So they ended up on this road trip 2-2, and I think that they can come home feeling at least okay about that.
Well, I don't know if
okay.
That's a little much for me. Like, there was a lot of bad hockey on this road trip. Like, some of the worst hockey.
I was thinking back on it. Yeah,
some of the worst hockey I've seen this season. But yeah, the way they ended matters, and I think one thing that makes it worth even more is that it was a game which started off looking a lot like the rest of the road trip did.
Yep,
like awful, and they managed to pull themselves completely out of it. And I think that does, that goes a long way for a team's psyche. Like, again, everything just looked better once those goals started going, and they started to build their confidence. And a lot of it was because they were just doing the right things. They were just playing solid hockey. And, there's a lot of things we can pick out, like the penalty kill, some of the weirdness there, some of the line combinations, roster construction. Like, I think that this has been a very interesting stretch for Greg Cronin and just the way he's kind of building his team.
We should definitely get there after the break.
Yeah, but that's we'll get to that.
Okay. Want to have a quick little word from our sponsors before we kind of move forward?
Yes.
All right. So this episode is brought to you by 714 Tickets. The hockey season is finally here. Whether you're a diehard Ducks fan or just looking for a night of exciting sports entertainment, 714 Tickets has got you covered. But here's the best part. At 714 Tickets, they're not just about hockey. They've got tickets to all your favorite sports, concerts, and live events right at your fingertips. And the icing on the cake, they don't charge you a single dime in taxes or fees. That's right, at 714 Tickets, what you see is what you get. No surprises at checkout. And with their user-friendly mobile app, booking tickets is a breeze. You can browse, select, and secure your seats within minutes. You can shop online at 714 Tickets, call 714 Tickets, or visit their office located right in front of Honda Center, and you get 10% off when you shop online using code CTP.
There you go.
Yeah.
Is that it? That was quick. That was fast.
Yeah, 714 Tickets keeps it nice and breezy for everyone out there. So go get tickets from them, everyone.
Efficient. Okay, well, on that note, one stat that I thought caught my eye, two stats that the broadcast mentioned. One is I think that the Ducks have already exceeded their number of road wins that they had all last season with the win today, which
they've also exceeded the number of regulation wins they had last season. That is, like, for anyone, this is something I realized this week. Shout out to Lou, I think, who pointed out the amount of wins, and they're like 3 wins off of last year, but they have they have more regulation wins now than they did all of last year. And so while the points, you look at the points this year versus last year and the rate they're at, it may be like, oh ho hum, they're on the same pace. And I know we kind of talk about there's a lot of other things you can look at, but just simply looking at regulation wins, they've won more games in regulation this year than they did all of last year. And when you get to an overtime game, it's kind of more of a crapshoot. It's not exactly actual hockey. 3-on-3 is not the same as 5-on-5. A shootout is definitely more of a crapshoot. They're more closer to skills competitions. And so in 5-on-5, or in kind of regulation hockey that starts at 5-on-5, the Ducks are better this year than they were last year already in terms of wins.
Yep. I mean, I'm sure that will come up, but yes, they are a better team this year than last year. Another stat that the broadcast threw out is that the Ducks are averaging more penalty minutes per game than any NHL team in the last 10 years. That's pretty bad.
Yep.
That is something that has gone just unchecked, that has not really shown any signs of slowing down as the season has gone on. But yeah, I mean, I think that right now what we're seeing is this team is still this team is still rebuilding. Could they be better if there had been some more health and luck along the way? Maybe. But right now, it's Greg Cronin figuring himself out as an NHL coach with some of these lineup decisions, some of these tactical decisions. It's these young players growing, and we keep an eye on them, especially game in and game out. Like right now, to me, if you're a Ducks fan and you're watching these games, you're really dialing in on the guys who are going to be here and be part of the core long term. And I realize that like Alex Killorn is here for 3 more years, as is Ryan Strome, but I really think that like you're watching Carlson, you're watching McTavish, you're watching Troy Terry, Minchikov, LaCombe.